Make it, Senator Conroy. Your question.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and I refer to the Minister's pre-election comments about military pensions in June 2013, and I quote, "CPI has not been a measure of cost of living for at least 15 years. Aged pensioners don't have their index assessed in this way, so they are falling further and further behind. It's basically unfair where they're at, and they deserve a fair go, and we're going to give it to them." Why then, Minister, did an official from Veterans Affairs Department confirm at Senate estimates, with you sitting next to them, that the government's first budget slashed $65.1 million from the pensions of 280,000 veterans, war widows and orphans of veterans by using CPI-only indexation? And how is this $65 million saving for the government not a loss to the weekly income of our veterans and their dependents?
Minister for Veterans Affairs, Senator Ronaldson.
Well, I thank Senator Conroy for his question in relation to this matter, which does give me the opportunity to talk about indexation as requested. Senator Conroy will be aware, and I presume this is the basis for his question, of the cross-portfolio decision made in relation to indexation measures which will take place in September of 2017. Now, Mr President, of course, Senator Conroy will also be aware that in the run-up to the last election, I went to many veterans forums around the nation and said in relation to the DFRB superannuation scheme that I believe there should be expanded indexation measures. Senator Conroy will also be equally aware that in this chamber I introduced a bill to achieve that. Now, Senator Conroy, through you, Mr President, needs to be reminded of the—
Pause the clock. Senator Conroy,
point of order is on direct relevance, Mr President. The Minister is now seeking to avoid answering the question relevantly because he's now referring to DFRB and DB retirement benefits. But my question is very specific about the pensions of 280,000 veterans and their dependents that will now receive only CPI indexation, not the schemes he's now talking about.
Thank you, Senator Conroy. There's no point of order. The Minister has been explaining the aspects of the question. He's still got 40 seconds left to go. He's continuing his answer. The Minister is relevant. Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Indeed, I think at the start of my answer, I indicated there had been some cross-portfolio changes, and I assume that was the basis on which the question was asked.
Order.
But if I may return, Mr President, to events in this chamber when Senator Conroy and the Australian Labor Party voted to keep CPI as the only measure for the DFRDB. And I'm happy to table the Senate Hansard, Mr President.
Minister, the time has expired for answering the question. Senator Conroy, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Before the election, the Prime Minister told the 2012 RSL National Conference, and I quote, "If it's inadequate just to lift Centrelink pensions by the Consumer Price Index, it's even less fair to apply solely that index to those who have risked their lives for our country. Loyalty goes both ways." Why then has the Prime Minister broken this promise and implemented CPI-only indexation for the pensions of 280,000 veterans and their dependents, war widows, orphans?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr President. And I think it's always best in a public forum like this to actually accurately reflect comments that have been made. And Senator Conroy knows full well that the Prime Minister was referring to the DFRB indexation measure which we're going to address. And can I get back to where I was before, Mr. President? Senator Conroy, in 3 separate votes in relation to the DFRDB indexation, voted to keep CPI
Pause
as
the clock. Point of order, Senator Wong.
I'm talking about.
Order, Senator Conroy. Senator Wong. Point of order.
Just admit it. You've cut pensions by 60%.
Senator Conroy, your leader is trying to raise a point of order. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Direct relevance. The minister is talking about a different scheme. He was not asked about that scheme. He was very specific. He was asked very specifically about the pensions of 280,000 veterans, war widows and orphans in relation and the government's decision to index by CPI. He is now talking about recipients of an entirely different scheme. That cannot possibly be directly relevant under the standing orders.
Senator Wong, Senator Ronaldson commenced his answer by responding to a quote given by Senator Conroy, and that was directly relevant to Senator Conroy's question. He still has 30 seconds remaining on his question. I call the minister. Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And the absolute irony and hypocrisy of the opposition leader who led the charge in this chamber as finance minister, who called our decision to make these changes unaffordable and a sham. This is the very person who took the point of order, Mr. President, in relation to indexation, and it is here in black and white that the
Minister, the
Labor
time for
Party
answering the question has expired. Senator Conroy, a further supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the government's, given the government's decision to index veterans' pensions to CPI only, axe the backdating of veterans' disability pensions for new recipients, and scrap the seniors supplement for some veterans, won't all of these combined measures have a disastrous impact on the cost of living for Australia's veterans?
Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Can I go through a variety of measures? And Senator Conroy had asked me about indexation. Look at the budget measures 2009-10 on page 238, and this is under the former government, and it said.
Pause the clock. Senator Moore, a point of order.
It's actually admitted he's not answering the question.
Order.
Order. You can just draw him
Order.
to his attention.
Senators on my left, you have your manager of opposition business waiting to raise a point of order.
It's a very mild rebuke. Draw his attention to the question. Just mild.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, direct relevance. The question specifically related on decisions of this government to the cost of living on veterans. We appreciate the history from the minister, but we'd like to get to an answer to this particular question.
Thank you, Senator Moore. The minister has only been going for The minister's only been going for 15 seconds. He has 75% of his question left to answer. Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. The short time left to me, I invite the Australian Labor Party to do something very, very constructive for Australian veterans over the next 24 hours, and that's to vote for the abolition of the carbon tax. So indeed, veterans can get the benefit of this.
Pause the clock. Minister. Before you raise a point of order, Senator Senator Ronaldson, I do draw your attention to the question. Senator Ronaldson.
Thank you very much. And in response to the cost of living question, in relation to the family tax benefit Part A, where the indexation was reduced to CPI, can I just give this quote, please? This measure will help reduce the long-term cost of the budget of a substantial and growing expenditure, contributing to the return of the budget to surplus and the reduction of net debt. The Australian Labor Party supporting CPI and indeed in changing a measure
The time for
to do
answering
so.
the question has expired. Senator Abetz.
I ask the